The next section that we are going to talk about is the aptitude section, and perhaps the first step towards the getting the right placement. So let's start about the aptitude skills. If I talk about the aptitude skills takes into account or checks three things. First, your rational, your logic. Second, your problem solving skills. And third, and last but not the least, is the decision making skills. So ideally, whenever you encounter any question, irrespective of the fact whether it's from verbal aptitude, it's from quantitative aptitude, it's from logical reasoning, it's from data interpretation, or it's a part of our non-verbal aptitude skills, they usually check your logic, that is rational, they check your problem solving skills, and last but not the least, they check your decision making skills. Let's quickly get on to it. One of the sections in which most of these students face a lot of problem is the verbal aptitude skills, which ideally checks your English skills or your understanding about the language. Now you need to understand over here that it's not a simple language testing parameter when I talk about the verbal aptitude. It is above it. It not only takes into account your understanding about the language of English, but it also takes into account the reasoning that you put behind the understanding of the questions, and we'll understand it in the coming time that how the reasoning behind the question makes it imperative to understand the solutions of the question. So we'll start first of all with the aptitude part, and when I talk about the aptitude part, two things are very important. One is the vocabulary skills and second is the grammatical aptitude. Let me talk about the vocabulary skills. When I talk about the vocabulary, usually people give a lot of responses in a way that it's easy to understand vocabulary, it's easy to deal with the vocabulary, but trust me, most of the people go wrong when it comes to vocabulary skills. One of the easiest way to understand when I talk about the vocabulary skills is by practicing it with the understanding of roots, prefixes and suffixes. In one of my sessions in the coming time, I'll let you know that how prefixes, suffixes and the learning of roots makes the learning of vocabulary absolutely easy process for you. We'll quickly go on to the next part. When I talk about the vocabulary skills, there are a list of things that are going to be asked in the examination. I've just named a few. It is not only limited to these options that I have mentioned over here. It is above it that you are going to practice in the coming time. And when I talk about the vocabulary skills, I've already talked about the roots, prefixes and suffixes. Apart from it, synonyms are also being asked. What do we understand by synonyms? The similar words. Then we have antonyms, which talks about the opposite words. Then we have one word substitute. We also have analogy. Now analogy is not only limited to words, it can be the form of sentences or the text, but usually in aptitude papers it is usually in the form of words. Then we have homonyms. Homo means similar. Jargons, these are the technical words which are asked. Idioms and phrases. Now idioms and phrases, it goes without saying that it has been a part of a lot of verbal aptitude examinations since long, and they're still being one of the favorite questions asked by the examiner as a part of filtration process. Further, I'll let you know about the grammatical part. Now this is one of the most important part. Nobody asks you grammar directly, but yes, it has been asked indirectly in different forms. So a question can be asked as a part of your grammatical aptitude that please rectify the given sentence, and there are four options, out of which three are incorrect and one is the correct one. Again, the questions can be asked in the jumbled form as well. Therefore, it is important for you to understand the grammatical part. And when I talk about the grammatical part, it is important for you to understand that you don't need to mug up the entire grammar book. There are only 3 to 4 areas in grammar which you possibly practice. You can become the master of the verbal aptitude as far as the grammatical part of the section is concerned. Let me talk about it. First comes the articles, that is a, an and the. Now articles might sound to you a very simple part of grammar, but it's not in most of the cases for the people, because though it seems to be easy, it creates a lot of confusion when the questions are being asked in the examination. I'll quickly move on to the next part, that is SVA. It is the abbreviation used. Its full form is subject verb agreement. So you need to understand the rules that how a subject agrees with the verb in the formation of sentences. Next is verbs and tenses. So there are 12 tenses, and a lot of people face a lot of difficulty in understanding that how tense changes with the passage of time and how it is connected with the aptitude part as well. So the better you are clear with the tenses, it will help you not only in reading and writing skills, in speaking skills, but also to perform better in the grammatical section as well. Further, going with the preposition part, it shows the position of an object. A lot of people make a lot of mistakes in realizing that what should be the ideal position or the preposition that should be chosen. If you master these areas, trust me, you have already mastered 70 to 80% of the grammar portion which is asked as a part of aptitude test in the examinations. However, I would again repeat the same thing. Whatever I have written on the board, whatever I have highlighted over here, that accounts for the majority part of our improvement process, but it is not limited up to. So you always need to improve, and there is no limitation, there is no boundary when you want to improvise yourself. And of course, you should keep improving day in and day out with all these parameters that we are discussing right now, with all the skills that we are talking about right now. I'll quickly go on to the next part, that is the other filtration process. So we have already talked about the language proficiency test earlier. Right now we are talking about the aptitude skills, and further comes the other filtration process. Now this other filtration process is very easy to understand, it's very simple to digest, because you have been observing it since ages. So if I talk to you that if I talk about GD, that is group discussion, I think everybody is aware about it. Everybody knows, yes sir, I can talk about GD. But where is the problem? We don't know the process of GD. We don't know the importance of GD. We don't know why it is used as a filtration process. We don't know the parameter or the evaluation tricks that we have in terms of measurement that we use. What are they and how they are being done? We don't know the types of group discussion, that what are the different ways, how should I start, what are the different roles being played in the group discussion. So again, that is a matter of mundane for a lot of students, that how should I master my GD skills, how should I ensure that I get the best placements, especially when the competition is tough and you have a lot of colleges participating and everybody is eager to make their place. In that scenario, how should I master my skills, whether in terms of body language for the group discussions, whether in terms of content delivery that you are talking about, whether it's about the awareness of different group discussions. It is very imperative, it is very important, it's significant for a candidate to understand and practice group discussion skills, which is nothing but a part of our filtration process during the recruitment and selection time. Further discussing about it, we have PI also, that is personal interview. Now PI differs from category to category. If I talk about the personal interview being conducted by the government services examination, for instance, UWSB, Union Public Service Commission, the PI is altogether a different thing over there. When I talk about the PI being conducted by the multinational companies, again there is a slight difference. When I talk about the PI being conducted by MSME, that is micro and small medium enterprises, it is going to be different. So what you need to understand, that you are usually aware, you are usually practicing the do's and don'ts of PIs. You know about the evaluation parameters of PIs. You should know what to ask and what not to ask during the PIs. And therefore, it is important for you to have an overall understanding that how PI process functions. Let me tell you about few parts of PIs which are very, very important for a student to understand. If I talk about the PIs, one is the general round of interview, in which general questions are asked. Tell me something about yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, and so on and so forth. The ideal intention of such kind of personal interview session is to know you, is to understand you, is to understand your attitude towards job, is to understand your behavior, is to understand your interpersonal skills, is to understand your different ways that how you look or perceive things in and around you, is to understand your presence of mind, is to understand your communication skills. So a general round of interview is usually been done in order to understand how good you are as a candidate when it comes from face-to-face interview. Now when I talk about the interviews, though I have not mentioned over here, your interview can be a telephonic round of interview. Your interview can be a Skype interview where you are not physically present, but the interview is being conducted by a video conferencing facility. And last but not the least, we have a domain HR and situation-based interviews as well. So when I talk about the domain-based interviews are ideally the one interviews in which the technical questions are being asked. So for example, if the interview is being conducted for a candidate belonging to marketing department, so majority of the questions will be focused on how he or she is going to demonstrate marketing skills or achieve the targets in the coming time. If the interview is for a finance candidate, he will be asked the intricacies of the finance domain. He will be asked questions which are absolutely related to finance and the working or the job description being mentioned. Similarly, if I talk about the human resource candidate interview, he'll be asked a lot of factors, a lot of technicalities, for example, something which is related to labor laws, trade unions, Contract Labor Act, Factories Act, Industrial Disputes Act, so on and so forth. Similarly, if I talk about the engineers might be asked about the domain knowledge. For example, a mechanical engineer might be asked about the pneumatic process, or let's say he might be asked about the certain other parameters which are related to endurance and stress which are related to machine, and so on and so forth. So domain interviews are very, very focused, are very, very limited, are very, very specific to the job description or to the specific job that you have applied for, and therefore you can never take it lightly. In fact, you cannot take any element of recruitment and selection process lightly, and therefore you need to be very good at the domain knowledge. Most of the time it is surprised to understand that a lot of companies reject the candidate in India, and this is one of the surveys which speaks that people lack technical or the domain knowledge as well, apart from the other parameters that we have discussed so far. So it is very important, people, that you brush up your knowledge, something which is related to your first year, second year, third year, and so on and so forth. It is not necessary that you remember only the last 6 months of what you have studied. It is very important for you to understand and remember that you remember the technical expertise, your technical knowledge, something which goes back towards the school, towards your graduation, and towards your PG course as well. Further, when I talk about the domain knowledge, I want to discuss in detail what do we understand by it, though we will be covering a separate session about it. Then comes the HR round of interview. It is usually a negotiation round for your salary. It is deciding about the terms and conditions, disclosing certain terms and conditions, offering an offer letter, and giving you other details which are relevant as a candidate for you. And situation-based interviews. Now this is very common for the management grad. And now what is a situation-based interview? For example, an interviewer might ask, "This is the pen, please sell it." The situation might change for a person who is appearing for an interview in the finance, or a situation might change for a person who is going to appear for an interview in HR. A question can be asked in HR that, "Please understand the requirement of training and development team, and there is a candidate who has been in the process for the last 20 years but he has not been promoted. What are the exact trainings that you would recommend for this kind of candidate?" Now these are the situation-based interviews. They are directly connected to domain, but they usually check your decision-making skills. They usually check your problem-solving skills in face-to-face communication, that how spontaneous you are, how instant you are in giving the required answers. Further, last but not the least, the presentations and the case studies slowly and gradually has evolved as a part of recruiting candidate, identifying the right resources, identifying the right pool of talent by the organizations. And trust me, some of the very good organizations, some of the top multinational companies go with these kind of competition, which are case study competition, which requires presentation skills as a part of recruitment and selection process. To name a few, we have written over here. For example, Amazon ACE competition, which has been conducted by Amazon. We have Mahindra War Room being conducted by Mahindra company in order to select candidates. So there are multiple competitions being conducted by different organizations, and it also leads to very good placement for these candidates. So what is important overall, that you should have a good potential, you should have a good command over the language skills, you should have a good command over your aptitude skills, you should have a thorough understanding what is required, do's and don'ts of personal interview, group discussions, and so on. A thorough practice, a thorough understanding, a mature behavior will obviously lead you towards a very good organization in terms of selection process. So with this, I would like to end my today's video. Thank you for listening to me. We'll come up with some more videos in the coming time. Thank you and have a great day.